Okay, for this last example, I'm just going to remind you guys how to convert from standard form to vertex form. Okay, so little reminder, A is the same in both vertex and standard form. Alright, so A is the same in both the vertex and the standard form. And if you guys see, I've got some kind of like, let me see if this is on the screen. I've got some lines kind of down at the bottom of the page for us to go ahead and write in our equations. So here, I'm going to slide this up just a little bit so you can see. Okay, now immediately, if I'm going to write this in vertex form, I know the A value from looking at that is -1. So I'm just going to set that up in my parentheses here. And it's x minus the x-coordinate of the vertex squared plus k. And I can do the same thing real quick over on this equation. The A value is 3, so I know that's going to go in front of my parentheses. And all we need to do then is find h and k. So to remind you, the x-coordinate of the vertex, or maybe I should say h here, is the formula from standard form -b over 2a. This particular question is a little tricky because I'm going to have opposite of b would be -3 over 2 times a, which is 2 times -1. -3 over -2. Not the greatest number I could have gotten, but that's going to be 1.5. Okay, now that's positive. If I'm thinking about my vertex here, it's going to be, 1.5 comma. We have to figure out the y-coordinate. But if I want to right now, this is your h. So it looks like the opposite of what it is when it's in vertex form, so it's going to be x minus the x-coordinate, so it'll look like x minus 1.5 squared. Now, all I would do to find the y-coordinate then, remember, plug it in. The negative needs to be outside here. This is -1 times x squared, so in place of x, I'm going to put this x-coordinate of the vertex, which is 1.5. You could also plug this in as a fraction if you wanted to, as 3 over 2. It's totally up to you. For me, it's a little easier working with the decimal. So I'm just going to type this into the calculator and determine our y value. So we're plugging in the x-coordinate of the vertex for x, and that should give us the y-coordinate of the vertex. So this isn't the greatest number in the world either, but that's what we have to work with. So -1.75. Now in this case, because I plugged in the x-coordinate of the vertex that we got, that would represent k in your vertex form. So all I'm going to do, the rest of vertex form is just to copy the y-coordinate. So this would be -1.75, and that would be what I'd be looking for. Okay, so we're just going to try it one more time. The x-coordinate of the vertex, also called h, is the opposite of b, so this one would be +5 over 2 times the a value. Now, this is not great. On the last question, I had 3 over 2, and that was 1.5, but let me just show you guys real quick. If I do 5/6, that's kind of a gross decimal, so it's a repeating decimal. I'm just going to go ahead and leave that as a fraction because I think it'll be easier to plug in. So 5/6 is my x-coordinate of the vertex here. So that was positive 5/6, and so when I come down here, it's going to look like a minus, but I'm just going to go ahead and leave it right as a fraction there. Now, we have to find k, which is just the y-coordinate of the vertex, but I've got my equation up here, so in place of this, I'm going to type the 5/6. And if you guys remember, your calculators, if you're working with the graphing calculator, do not have a fraction key. But I'm literally just going to type this in. 5 divided by 6 is my x value. Just use the division key. This is squared minus 5 times that 5/6, and then plus 1. Now, again, this is not the nicest number. So what I'm also going to recommend to you here, this is -1.083 repeating. Now, just as a little quick note, this is another good calculator tip. If you hit the math button which is going to be right under your alpha key here. I'm just going to hit math. And that very first option is FRAC, that stands for fraction. Just hit enter 2 times. So I'm just going to hit enter twice, and it'll give that to me as a fraction in lowest terms. So this is the same thing as negative 13 over 12. And I'm going to go ahead and list that as I write my equation, because it's a little nicer looking than that long repeating decimal. So that's going to be my equation in vertex form for the second graph.